we bought the farm in 2008, and really right from the beginning we started to introduce more wild species, diversify the plant life that was here, really because we wanted to, but we understood the value of that. We're both biologists by training, so it seemed natural to really increase the number of habitats and the amount of wildlife that we had on the farm. Both because really we understand the resilience that biodiversity brings to our ecosystems, but also as part of our tourism offer, we really wanted to encourage as much wildlife so that the people who were visiting had that chance to interact with the wildlife. So one of the first things that we did when we arrived was to plant the orchard. So we have a small orchard that has heritage varieties of apples, pears, plums, as many as we could get our hands on. It has some modern varieties in there as well, but we wanted to plant heritage varieties because actually we knew that they would be adapted to the conditions that we have. We're quite high up here on the skirts of Ailith Hill. So we knew that it needed to be, things needed to survive, and we had the best chance with Scottish varieties. And underneath that we planted a wildflower meadow, and that gets grazed only at the end of the year. So it's actually where the tups go in the autumn, so that they're further away from the ewes before we put them in with the ewes. And then as part of the renovations of the farm, we also had to put in a water source, because there was no, although we have private water supply, it doesn't sit in a pond. We had to put in a pond for planning purposes, and that was an amazing opportunity to really design a wildlife pond that was great for wildlife, not just for if the fire brigade had to come and put their hoses in it. So yeah, we designed that so that it was really deep and would allow the wildlife to sort of survive the winter in that. It has different levels so that, you know, there are different marginal plants that sit around that. We collect some of our botanicals from the farm, so all of the elderflower comes from the farm. We are picking more and more from the farm, and actually we've planted loads more. The honeysuckle all comes from the farm for the larch and honeysuckle. But we also pick from a neighbouring woodland that's owned by the Forestry and Land Scotland. And we are actually the only company in Scotland that has a botanical picking licence, or any picking licence, with Forestry and Land Scotland. And that's something that we've developed, and we'd really like to expand to allow other companies to pick from local forests. So we do a lot of work around wild food and non-timber. We founded the Non-Timber Forest Products Network, which is about using our forests more effectively to create all sorts of products that currently don't exist but could exist. With a bit of innovation and a bit of imagination, we have all sorts of things that we could make. Yeah, we do things a bit differently. We're not an organic farm, but we don't use any chemicals at all, and that's because we want to be able to pick everything and anything wherever it's growing. So it may not be in a field, it may be on a verge, and we want to ensure that there's safety for our customers around that, so we don't use any chemicals at all. We do things differently, I guess, because we encourage the biodiversity and instead of seeing things as a problem, we see them as a benefit, because, you know, there's lots of dandelions out here at the moment. Actually, you can use dandelion flowers and dandelion roots in products, but also they're the first nectar that's out in the spring for the bees. So it's about helping everything. It's about encouraging the nature on the site, and through that we benefit as well because we have a wealth of plants that we can use. We have a small flock of Hebridean sheep that we sell on for breeding animals and for meat production. They're slaughtered as hogget, so we keep it slightly unusual. They take a long time to mature, but the meat is amazing. When we were looking what breed to have, one of the things was the flavour of the meat. And I guess that's everything as well as the biodiversity angle of what we do here. Actually, everything's driven by flavour, and it's about tasting the countryside, and the flavour of the meat is just amazing. They're small carcasses, you don't get a lot, but you don't need a lot because actually the flavour of the meat is really intense. We now sell into fine dining restaurants, so we've created a market, so we sell into Fife Arms and into Cyneucharin. So the chefs who are at the top end of fine dining restaurants are beginning to understand that within our heritage breeds of animals, there's real depth of flavour that is valuable, and they're prepared to pay, premium. I guess the spirits developed from really the reintroduction of lots of different plant species, and it also occurred at a time when we had a lot of connections with Denmark. Both of our sons went to school for a year in Denmark, so we were backwards and forwards, and we knew about the spirits that they produced in Scandinavia and also in the Alps using wild plants. And in Scotland we've really not had that. Well, not in recent history, we haven't had the use of our native flora in spirits, but over the rest of Europe that was absolutely prevalent all over. And so in different places you get different types of spirits made with different plants. And we really wanted to bring that to Scotland to diversify the spirits that we have within Scotland. But also it was really important, and what's become increasingly obvious is that by introducing people to our native flora through a drink that they're holding in their hand or a cocktail, it's actually a really powerful way of connecting them with the environment, but also with the culture around our plants that we've lost over hundreds of years. The Highland Boundary Company was founded in January 2016. But then it took us more than 2 years to actually bring the first spirit to the market. So we spent a lot of time doing R&D. So I'm a research scientist by training, and I spent a long time really exploring the flavours that we got from our wild plants, and working out how was the best way to really extract those flavours. And that's not straightforward at all, and different for every plant. So all of the products, we now have 4 products, and they're all made entirely differently. It's not the same. It's not the same process, just with different plants. Actually, you have to work with the plants because the chemistry of the flavours are different, and how that works through your process, you have to adapt that and really work that out. So once we have the flavour that we want, we have to work backwards and then design the processes to capture the flavours in the right way. So for example, the Birch and Elderflower spirit, the birch that's distilled, but the elderflower, the flavour that you get from the elderflowers is so delicate that if you put it through the still, you lose the flavour. So actually the elderflower is added as a post-distillation infusion. So with each product you have to work with the plant and the chemistry to actually capture the flavour. We have 2 spirits and 2 liqueurs that we make at the moment. The first spirit that we launched within 2018 was Birch and Elderflower, and that's a really clean, fresh flavour. It's a flavour called wintergreen that you get from the birch buds. And then the second spirit that we launched actually in May last year, which was really not quite how everybody expected last year to be, was the Larch and Honeysuckle. And that's a really different flavour. It's sort of really deeply woody, complex. It's got citrus notes in it. The flavours that you find from larch if you eat it, the foliage straight off the tree. Our first release won gold medal at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, which we were just like, whoa, that's amazing. And then we entered the Larch and Honeysuckle, and it won a double gold, which is the highest award. So we're like amazed at the industry response that we've had to our spirits, so people are really enthused. And we now have 2 liqueurs as well. So the birch appears in both of those because that clean freshness really works in the liqueurs to really lighten them and stop them tasting overly sweet. So we have Birch and Sloe, which is our take on sloe gin, but tastes nothing like sloe gin. It's really light, much lighter, fresher, cleaner, all year round drink, not just for Christmas. And the other one is a Birch and Elderflower liqueur, which we really made in response to when we went out and met our customers with the first spirit. There were lots of people who liked the idea of what we were doing, but didn't really want spirit. So we made something that was much softer. Lots more products that we're working on. There's a sort of constant experimenting, and we have 2 products that, again, because we kind of went back into lockdown, we were going to launch this year. The one will launch later on this year in the autumn time. But yeah, we're constantly exploring all of the flavours, and we're constantly working with academic institutions. So we have collaborations with both Heriot Watt, who helped us right at the beginning to get the Birch and Elderflower launched, but we also work with Robert Gordon University as well. So that collaboration with academics is really important to the business as well. As well as encouraging the biodiversity in all its forms. We have solar panels on the roof, photovoltaic solar panels on the roof of the distillery and the barns. We have biomass boiler that heats the offices. We have a private water supply which comes off Ailith Hill, and actually that water is reused and recycled, and once it's cooled, it's coming from the condensers and the still that goes into the wildlife pond. So all the water is recycled through the water system, and that pond actually helps slow down any flooding events as well. I think what we've learned over the past, well, more than 10 years we've been here, is that actually you have to go with what you really believe in. So I think a lot of people, when we first started the distillery, thought it was a bit odd that we weren't making gin. Why are you not making? And people assume that we make gin. Well, we don't make gin because we don't have any juniper on our land. We don't want to buy juniper. It's about creating products that are authentic to where we are, and that sense of place really resonates with our customers, and that's why they buy our products. And you can't invent that. You have to work with what you have and work with what your land can support. But really thinking out of the box and doing things differently is absolutely what we do here, and I guess that's paid off for us. One piece of advice to people who want to do something different is just go for it. Yeah, crunch the numbers and work out the business plan, but actually you have to have the passion behind it, and your customers will hear that passion if you're passionate about it, and that's what they're interested in buying. People are increasingly interested in understanding where their food is coming from and understanding how it's produced and why it's produced in a particular way. So that market is growing all the time. The ethos that drives everything that we do here is around biodiversity and the regeneration of the biodiversity in our landscape and in our ecosystems. But we don't see that as a negative. That's absolutely the strength of our business, and by capitalising, not in a negative way, but using the natural capital as a positive for our business, that's the way that we've created a profitable business here.